Okay, so me and Graham, my buddy, has come round. We're going to have a game of Muskets and Tomahawks. And this is the scenario. I'll go through it. First of all, let me go through the units on the table. Here we are. There's the sheet. So as you can see, the British have got a regular officer, and with him is a grenadier unit, a normal British infantry unit, and they're both 8s. And a unit of 6 light infantry, and then also along with that there's a provincial officer or loyalist officer with a large unit of 12 provincial infantry and a unit of 6 light infantry, which are scouts. You can see the British, they come on over there. I'll explain the scenario in a minute. And their colonial troops, they come on this side of the table. And the Americans, I've got their Continental infantry in the middle, in the village, or the hamlet. They've got 2 units of militia, one over there, and one over there. And then we've also got 2 units of riflemen, which are next to the militia, to give them a bit of support. Let's have a look at the American sheet. There's the American officer with 3 units of Continental infantry, each of 8. There's 2 units of militia, one of 8 and one of 7. And then we've got an officer of light troops with 2 very strong American rifle units of 6. Now we rolled for sides. Graham's the attacker and he's playing capture. They have to get near to the 2 hamlet buildings, and if they occupy those buildings, even with just one figure, and no enemy units other than civilians are within 4 inches of the buildings in the hamlet, they win. The American side have got evacuation, and their object of the game is to try and get the civilians, which are here and here, 2 units of 5, off the table edge. Right, the problem with the Americans are they don't know where they're going to be leaving yet. Because if you read the rules for the evacuation, after the first red clock card of the game is drawn, the enemy side, that's the British side, must take 2 objective markers and place these markers on the table in the open terrain, each in contact with a different board edge and more than 24 inches apart. Then units of civilians can withdraw from these points. But at the moment, the Americans don't know where those points are. So until that red clock card comes out, I actually can't do anything with my civilians.
So once the red clock comes out, then you know where they've got to go?
Correct.
Oh, wow.
So what we'll do is, we're not going to leave this running the whole game. We'll do the first move, and every so often I'll report back and tell you what's happened in the game. Okay, before we start, just a couple of things I need to point out. The first thing is that the table we're using, the recommended size is 4x4, but we're using a 4x3 table because I just haven't got the space for 4x4. So 2 edges are sort of closer than they should be. This is going to cause a bit of a problem in the first move, but you know, this is just a game where we're playing to learn the rules. In fact, it's Graham's first game. I've played a few. But I'm a little bit green, so you know, it's just really an experiment. We just wanted to see how it goes, so we're not too worried about the table side. But it did make quite a significant difference in that first move, which you're about to see. Okay, we've done the first move, and it's been quite an amazing first move as well, because as you can see, if I move the camera a little bit closer, in the hamlet here, my troops were sort of here, but the British came on the edge of the table over there, and straight away, of course, as they're allowed to do, they did volley fire, because you can come on in any formation. So they came on in close formation and they fired volley fire. The 2 British infantry line here, and they caused a casualty on this unit, this Continental unit, and they've had to do a reaction test, and they've fallen back shaken. This unit had to fall back shaken as well. They didn't lose anybody, The civilians lost 2 figures, and the civilian leader also died. But the worst thing for the Americans was their officer in the middle also died to the volley fire. So it was an amazing volley fire, killing 3 civilians, 1 soldier and 1 officer. So in the very first move of the game, the British have got a massive advantage now, and before the Americans have even moved at all. So we'll come back later and tell what happens. Right, a quick update of where we are in the next move. You can see here the militia are trying to get into the rocky ground. They've just managed to get in there just about, but also the British light infantry have moved up into the rocky ground as well. However, they were shot at by the militia, so they have opened fire and put a bit of smoke there. And they caused 1 casualty, and the British are now shaken, but they're still there. In the middle, both Continental units failed to rally, so they're still shaken, which is not good. The other Continentals did volley fire on the light infantry, the provincial light infantry, which come on here. They lost a man. They did fall back, but now it's their turn and they move forward again. So they're not in a bad situation. They're heading towards the wood. The other provincials, close order troops, have moved around and are poised nicely for when it's their turn again to open fire on the other Continentals that are in the field there. The other militia over the other side of the table have just moved up a little bit. They're in extended order and they're moving up to try and get on the flank of the British line. So that's where we are. Okay, well, the latest update is these guys have recovered in here. They're only 4 men now, but they were shaken, but they're no longer shaken. But you can see that the militia have had to fall back and they're shaken. They haven't recovered yet. The rifles opened fire and caused a casualty over there, but they say they've recovered from that. And the other end of the table, the rifles in the wood over there also opened fire and killed 1 of the grenadiers. They were shaken, but they've recovered as well. And you can also see they've turned round slightly. They've moved forward because they want to try and shoot at my civilians, which is not a very nice thing to do, since half of them are already dead and I'm trying to get at least half of them off the table. And Graham has decided he's going to target them.
I can't lose the game then if I do that.
What a thing to do, eh? The other big thing is here, the provincials moved up, faced this unit and opened fire on them. They didn't actually cause a casualty.
Volley fire, though.
It was volley fire, and these fired as well. But first of all, the volley fire when these fired didn't cause a casualty, and the morale was fine. The trouble is, there was another unit behind it here, which lost 3 figures, which was rather nasty. And then they did a very poor morale test, and they routed. So these provincials have been very effective. And then these light troops here opened fire on the Continentals, and they did lose a figure. So at the moment, the Continentals are under all sorts of pressure in the middle. They're being attacked from 2 directions, and they've lost 1 unit already. The other units, this unit is still shaken. This one's out of ammunition. So it's not looking too good. The civilians are trying to get away from these British troops that are trying to kill them, basically. On the far side, the militia are moving up, but not fast enough. The rifles are on the edge of the wood with their long rifles. They're hoping to pick off some British, but the trouble is they need to do more than that now. The same over here. The rifles in the wood can open fire and cause casualties, but of course these British are in rocky ground, so they're getting quite good cover. Although we are whittling them down, we do need to be able to get rid of those so they can come on the flanks of the British. Now the British object is to occupy the buildings with no Americans within 4 inches. Now, at the moment, there's these within 4 inches and also the militia. So they can't win at the moment, but they're certainly, I would say, in a much stronger position, because the American casualties, as you can see, are over here. A full unit plus another figure from another unit, and of course they lost their officer, which was a disaster. That was the first move. The British losses are only 3, as you can see over there. So at the moment, it looks very positive. The British commander, Graham,
Hoo-ha.
is quite happy at the moment. But will he stay happy? Will the Americans be able to pull something out of the bag? I don't know. Well, we'll see. Right. Good news for the Americans. This unit recovered from its shaken and it was unloaded. It opened fire on the Grenadiers, who had just come out of formation so they could fire on these, but they didn't get a chance because the Americans fired on with volley fire, and although they didn't cause a casualty, they did manage to make them flee. So finally something's gone right for the American side. But it's not a big bonus, but it's every little helps at the moment. The Grenadiers are falling back. Yay! Right, something really amazing just happened.
From Alex's perspective.
Right. Something really amazing has just happened for the Americans. They needed a break, and boy have they just got one. Because the Grenadiers that were here have charged my militia. And by sheer fluke, I think it's fair to say, the militia only lost one, and the Grenadiers lost three, purely through abysmal dice throwing by the British player. And the morale test as a defender had to be done by the militia first, and they rolled a really good dice, which is very rare for me, and they stood there, and the British rolled an abysmal 2.
I rolled a 2.
So they've routed. So what really should have been quite an easy victory for Grenadiers charging militia totally backfired, and now the British have lost an entire unit of Grenadiers, and it's meant that the civilians, which are here, haven't got anything to stop them getting off the table as long as they get the cars to do it. The British do, though, have another unit over here which they might well turn now and try and stop them, but that is really a game changer. The Grenadiers there should really have won that. They had much better chance to cause casualties. They were hitting on 4+ against the militia hitting on 7+, but they first of all got 3 casualties each, and then when it came to the saving throws, the militia rolled extremely well again. They rolled everything and saved all of them. No, they lost 1 man in fact, but the British Grenadiers lost all 3 of theirs. They didn't save any.
No, I needed 4+.
Yeah.
4+ and failed on all 3.
Yeah.
You needed 7+.
Yeah.
And you saved 2 of your 3.
Yeah, I did. It was I in fact needed 6+, but I think I rolled 2 8s and a 9, didn't I?
You did.
Which was amazing. The Grenadiers defence, they needed 4+ and didn't save any. So how often would that happen? That's an absolute fluke, but it was it saved the bacon of the Americans. Okay, it's confession time. We made quite a big mistake. Well, in fact, it was me. I forgot that the Grenadiers are in fact an elite unit, and if an elite unit has to do a morale test, rather than roll just 1 dice, it's allowed to roll 3, and it takes the middle dice, as the actual test. So you take away the lowest dice and the highest dice, you're left with the middle one, which could have meant that in fact the Grenadiers might not have run off the way they did. Anyway, it's too late now. We played the game, and we just realised after we finished that that could have been made quite a bit of difference. But there we go, just one of those things. Okay, final wrap up for this game. Quite an amazing game. I think I mentioned earlier to you that over here that the British Grenadiers routed, which was a real game changer, because the civilians were heading off to that corner to get away. However, we did realise, of course, that I've already lost 6 civilians, which included a leader, and I have to get 50% off the table to win, and of course I can't get 50% off because 6 of them are dead. So I can't actually get a win, but at least I can maybe get a draw out of this, because the other interesting thing is over here, these light infantry that were in this rocky ground, these riflemen opened fire on them and caused 3 casualties, and they promptly routed off the field. So the British, although it went horribly wrong for them sort of just a little while ago, they have the infantry in the village here which are looking strong, and they have the provincials over here that are now all reloaded and ready to go, and they're obviously going to cause serious grief to the Continentals that are being attacked from both sides. But they cannot win the game because those militia are always going to be near that building, and these two units over here now have got a chance to come into the battle. So we've called it a draw, which I think is a fair result. The Americans were winning all the way through, really, until the Grenadiers run off, and they lost that other unit over on the hill. Oh, incidentally, yeah, the cards that are left to play as well. The British side have only got 2 blue cards, and the American side have got 2 blue cards as well. So the Americans are starting to gain the upper hand. But what a game. It really has been so difficult for the Americans because they were being attacked in the centre and losing lots of people. Lost their officer in the very first move. But they've managed by this heroic militia here, which managed to see off the Grenadiers, which effectively won them the game. Well, not won them the game, they managed to get a draw out of a game where they were in desperate situation. So a very enjoyable game, I think, well, from my point of view, because I managed to get a draw out of what was going to be a big defeat. But that was pure fluke, I think, on the dice, and normally that wouldn't happen. Normally the Grenadiers would see militia off without any problem, but as we all know in wargaming, if you don't roll the right dice, you're not going to win the game, and that's what happened there. So I think a very interesting game, and hope you've enjoyed watching it. Okay, see you again soon.